February 14th, 2025. What looked like another routine, Miami drug bust exploded into a global scandal. 50 bricks of cocaine, 96% pure, stamped with Venezuela's presidential seal. The trail led straight to Caracas, tracing millions in secret payments, official cover-ups, and a defector's bombshell, blueprints of an underground lab. But how deep did this operation go, and just how far were officials willing to go to hide it? At 11:37 p.m. on February 14, 2025, DEA Special Agent Caroline Voss stepped onto the cracked pavement behind a Miami warehouse, acting on a tip about a mid-level distributor named Esteban Ruiz. The air was heavy with the smell of diesel and chemical solvent. Inside a battered van, agents found 50 bricks of cocaine stacked in a blue duffel bag. Each brick was vacuum sealed and stamped with Venezuela's Bolivarian emblem, an unmistakable mark of official state insignia. Voss immediately flagged the packaging for forensic analysis. The lab results stunned the team. The purity level measured 96%, far beyond what is typical for street or jungle labs. The signature pointed to an industrial operation, one equipped with hydraulic presses, commercial acetone, and advanced filtration systems. These were not the leftovers of a rural processing site. They were the product of a facility with resources and protection at the highest levels. The evidence did not stop at chemistry. Isotopic analysis matched trace elements in the cocaine to soil samples from the Caracas basin, narrowing the source to a region under government control. For Voss, the implications were immediate. This was not just another smuggling case. The cocaine in Miami was a fingerprint, pressed by a state actor. The find would soon pull federal agencies into a far larger investigation, with consequences reaching well beyond the city's borders. Within weeks of the Miami seizure, intelligence analysts at Langley and Quantico began connecting dots that stretched across the country. In Los Angeles, Phoenix, Atlanta, Newark, Baltimore, and Detroit, agents intercepted bricks of cocaine identical to those found in Miami, each stamped with the Bolivarian seal. The pattern was too precise to ignore. Every major bust pointed back to a single, protected source. Distributors, when pressed, described their supplier as untouchable, someone with government backing. The digital trail was just as telling. A burner phone traced through 4 layers of proxies pinged a cell tower 3 blocks from the presidential residence in Caracas. Meanwhile, a joint CIA and DEA financial task force pored over wire transfers routed through Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Dubai. Monthly deposits ranged from $180,000 to $650,000, landing in accounts linked to Colonel Romero Espinoza of the Ministry of Interior, General Luis Arasa of the National Guard, and Vice President Diosdado Cabello. Forensic accountants mapped the flow. U.S. street sales funneled through offshore shells, then laundered back into Venezuelan state payrolls. With each new seizure and transfer, the evidence grew harder to dismiss. The scale was industrial, the protection unmistakable. But to move from suspicion to proof, investigators needed an insider, someone who could expose the operation from within. November 15th, 2025, brought an unexpected break. A Venezuelan Air Force lieutenant named Javier Colmenares appeared at the U.S. Embassy in Bogota, clutching a thumb drive. Colmenares had slipped out of Caracas after months of quietly gathering evidence, risking his life to document what he called the regime's deepest secret. The files he handed over contained 63 high-resolution photographs and architectural blueprints of a subterranean facility buried beneath the city. The diagrams revealed a labyrinth spanning 3 levels, with reinforced concrete walls, decontamination chambers, and industrial elevators. Each floor served a different function: chemical processing on the first, hydraulic pressing and packaging on the second, and long-term storage on the lowest. The images showed workers in full hazmat gear, conveyor belts stacked with cocaine bricks, and armed guards posted at every corridor. Colmenares described 3 rotating shifts, 40 workers per shift, and a relentless production cycle, 400 kilograms of pure cocaine processed every week, with capacity for 30 tons in reserve. He identified National Guard officers overseeing security and Cuban advisors managing the encrypted communication system that linked the facility to distribution networks abroad. The blueprints detailed escape tunnels, armored doors, and even a soundproofed command center. For the first time, investigators had a complete map of the operation, its scale, its personnel, its vulnerabilities. The intelligence was actionable. Within days, planning began for a direct assault on the heart of the operation, guided by the defectors' files. The blueprint leak transformed speculation into certainty and set the stage for a raid that would test the limits of international law and covert action. At 4:32 in the morning, the first Black Hawk touched down on the outskirts of central Caracas. 24 operators split into 3 teams, each assigned a separate entry route mapped from the defectors' blueprints. The lead team moved in through a disguised service tunnel, cutting through a steel grate and bypassing a motion sensor with a handheld jammer. The second team rappelled from the roof of a utility substation, breaching a concrete hatch with thermite charges. The third team advanced from a loading bay, neutralizing 2 perimeter guards before slipping inside. Within 60 seconds, operators were moving through the labyrinth, 47 rooms each with a specific function. Chemical fumes hung in the air above the processing floor, where workers in hazmat suits froze at the sight of armed intruders. Flashbangs echoed off reinforced walls. 14 guards armed with AK-47s and RPGs attempted to regroup near the central elevator. Operators responded with controlled bursts, disabling the threat and securing the command center. On the lowest level, rows of hydraulic presses and conveyor belts ran silent. In the storage vault, pallets stacked with cocaine bricks filled the space from floor to ceiling. With the facility under control in less than 8 minutes, agents began the painstaking process of documenting the evidence that would soon shake the foundations of a regime. Forensic teams in full protective suits moved methodically through the underground facility, their task clear. Document every gram, every dollar, every trace of criminal enterprise left behind. In the storage vault, the scale of the operation became undeniable. 30,000 kilograms of pure cocaine, stacked in dense, uniform bricks, filled pallet after pallet, enough to flood the United States market for years. The street value alone reached $2.3 billion. Alongside the cocaine, agents logged $47 million in United States currency bundled in shrink-wrapped stacks, and 220 kilograms of gold bars, each stamped with Venezuelan state markings. The cataloging did not stop at the drugs and cash. Industrial-grade machinery, hydraulic presses, acetone drums, filtration arrays lined the walls, their serial numbers recorded for evidence. Teams weighed and sealed 1,847 kilograms of processing chemicals, every container tagged and photographed. But it was the handwritten ledgers found in a locked office that offered the clearest map of the operation's reach. 4 years of transactions, meticulously tallied. 160 metric tons produced since 2021, $11.2 billion in revenue, and $840 million in coded payments to government officials. Each entry transformed raw evidence into a legal case, linking the physical haul to names and accounts already under suspicion. By the end of 11 hours, agents had built a forensic record that would stand up in any court, exposing not just a drug lab, but a criminal enterprise run from the highest levels of state power. 17 federal indictments landed with the force of a diplomatic earthquake. United States prosecutors named Nicolas Maduro, Diosdado Cabello, and top military commanders as criminal defendants, alleging a conspiracy to flood American cities with cocaine. The Treasury froze $340 million in Venezuelan assets across banks in Europe, the Caribbean, and the Middle East, funds traced back through shell companies and coded transfers. These financial blocks sent shockwaves through Caracas, but the operation's human toll stretched far beyond government accounts and courtrooms. Drug Enforcement Administration analysts estimated that cocaine from the Caracas facility reached 1.4 million users in the United States over 4 years. At least 2,700 overdose deaths could be directly linked to the shipments catalogued in the lab's ledgers. The evidence painted a picture of a government not just complicit, but actively orchestrating a trade that devastated communities an ocean away. Yet, as the indictments circulated, debate erupted in capitals and newsrooms around the world. Was this justice? or a violation of sovereignty in the name of self-defense? Inside a closed-door session, the Sensitive Activity Review Committee pored over the raid's aftermath. Legal scholars and ethicists argued over the line between intervention and aggression. Meanwhile, new intelligence pointed to 3 additional subterranean labs in Maracaibo, Valencia, and Puerto Cabello, suggesting the network remained intact despite the blow. The case forced a narco-state reckoning. How far should nations go to stop such a system when the cost is rewriting the rules of international conduct? State corruption and the global drug trade remain tightly linked. Venezuela now ranks 3rd worldwide in cocaine production, and trafficking routes shift faster than enforcement. Until accountability reaches every level of power, the machinery keeps running. The next crisis could already be in motion. What do you think comes next?